Hey, I'm Scott Wolf, and this is my throwback with TV Guide magazine. Okay, so this is like the throwback of throwbacks for TV Guide magazine. So this is, I've talked about this edition for years. Hundreds of times. So the best show you're not watching. And so it was like this honor, but also this like weird honor. It's like you're the best of the not happenings. But we also knew that the whole point of it was to talk about the fact that we were an endangered series, that not enough people were watching and our ratings weren't high enough. What's bananas is, this was in 1994. So I want to say we had like 13 million viewers every week. But because there was so much fewer, there were all these streaming services didn't exist. 13 million was just a death knell. You were going to get canceled. Party of Five has laughs, loves, and the cutest cast on TV. Find out why this dynamic drama belongs on your can't miss list. Okay, so I think this actually, funny enough, or not funny enough, helped a lot. There are bits and pieces of publicity that can come out that may or may not register with people, may help, may not help. I honestly think this moved the needle because this was still in everybody's homes or grocery counters. It feels like an antique now, but I grew up with these. And then, and then there's Life of the Party. I won't read the whole article, but this was probably the most widespread sort of word that got out about our show. And at a time where, we were showing up being told we have no idea how long we're going to get to go at this rate. The network believes in what we're doing, but if ratings don't come up, if we don't get more people watching, we'll get canceled eventually. And so, this was the kind of beginning, I really think, of starting to sort of gather momentum. Ratings started to stabilize because, new shows can kind of diminish over time. It's amazing to see this. When I just saw this is the first time I've seen it in decades probably, but we were cute. Check us out. So these are quotes from this TV Guide article. Best show you're not watching. So this first quote from the article says, it's me saying, "No one around here wants to sell it short." From the minute we stood in a circle at the network and they said, "Congratulations, you're the Salingers," there was this real kind of like knowing that something special was happening. It wasn't sort of like, oh, yeah, I guess he kind of looks like me and I wonder what she's going to be like. It was like, whoa, we are the Salingers and let's go be them. This idea that they were going to break us apart and, stop us from doing this thing that we really loved and believed in. Believed in the stories we were telling and the impact it could have on people. So nobody was, what I loved is every bit of that first year where we were being told, it's a little dicey. Not enough people are watching. Everybody stayed so committed to the stories we were telling, characters we were playing, to pour everything we had into making it work and not leaving anything on the table. I was really proud of, we were a bunch of young kids who were just starting out, and across the board, everybody just dug in and kept believing. So this was definitely a nice help. A year later, we were nominated for a Golden Globe, and then off we went. Okay, the second quote from this article is me again. Shocker. And it says, "My first kiss was when I was 7. True story. I went to a summer camp for the first time that year and had my first girlfriend. Her name was Sharon. Hi, Sharon. We kissed at camp." I sound like I'm 7 when I'm saying that. This is a true story. I've always been an open book. Sharon was my first girlfriend. I was 7 years old. And we kissed. We kissed at camp. Kissing at camp felt like different than kissing at home. It's like being in Vegas, I guess, as a kid. What happens at camp stays in camp. All right. Wolf, meanwhile, not my direct quote, but another quote from the article. Wolf, meanwhile, has made only a fleeting stab at domesticity. That has a lot of innuendo built into there that I won't unpack. But he doesn't have a girlfriend right now. He appears to be working on it, however. The baby-faced 27-year-old wasted no time in asking an attractive bystander out during a TV Guide photo shoot. Ew. All right. Well, I was a single 27-year-old on TV. I was asking folks out. I don't remember this happening. I feel like I was sort of somewhat discreet and not just like, hey, you want to go out? You want to go out? Yeah. So just for photo shoots can last for hours. It wasn't like I showed up and someone snapped a picture. I was like, hey, you want a date? So yeah, this. I'm sure this happened. And yeah. And eventually I have made an incredible stab at domesticity. I have a wife and 3 children, and I will be married 21 years next year. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kelly Wolf. I love you the most.
So don't hate Jennifer Love Hewitt because she's Bailey's new obsession. Hewitt knows how lucky she is and is suitably humbled by her love scenes with young hunk Scott Wolf. It's amazing and great, she allows. I have no complaints about my job, nor does anyone else. Hewitt's on-screen chemistry with Wolf is one of the reasons the producers expanded her role from recurring guest to series regular. So just talk about working with her and working with her again because you worked previously together.
Yes. When Jennifer Love Hewitt came onto the show, it was fantastic. Bailey had I think 1, maybe 2 other girlfriends on the show. And they were written to be more fleeting, and he was only 16 years old. But when Jennifer Love was cast and we started playing scenes together, it was pretty clear that there was a really great chemistry between us and a really sort of beautiful, complicated. It had sort of tragic elements to it, but really beautiful innocence to it. And for a show that was really about these young teenage characters, shows weren't telling stories like that and showing relationships like that. But yeah, I think the intention was that, she would do a number of episodes and then on we'd go. But it became clear that there was so much more to be explored there. She had been on a show called Kids Incorporated, which was like kind of a kids musical show. And I did a guest spot on it. That's where we had met. So, the one thing that was weird, honestly, was that when she was cast, she was 16 and looked 16. I was 24 and looked 16. But what was amazing was like, when we were working together, there was nothing, I don't know. It just felt so, we just had such a great sense of these characters and what they meant to each other. And even if they weren't going to spend the rest of their lives together, there was something really special about the connection that they had. And yeah, it wound up being one of those things that not only resonated with the audience in a way that they wanted her around, but when Bailey treated her badly or broke up with her, I'd hear about that. People made that very clear to me how they felt about that, and still do, weirdly, So people are watching the show now, and I don't know if they're streaming it or have DVDs or what it is, but I still catch a lot of flack for how Bailey treated Sarah at times. But Jennifer is just lovely, and if I get a chance to work together with her or any of the cast of Party of 5, I'm happy.
One thing that not having parents on the show enables us to do is to have kids make mistakes and handle them in a realistic way, says Amy Lippman, who created and produces the show with partner Christopher Kaiser. There are no parents to give advice, but these kids eventually tend to do the right thing.
When we began Party of 5, the only shows that were on that had, teenage characters, there were some wonderful shows. The way those characters were being sort of treated and portrayed, the way they were being written for, was different, I sort of have always felt like that the whole point, in some ways of Party of 5 was to take on these characters at this very formative, time in their lives as teenage characters in a way that felt real, that felt authentic, that felt respectful, that felt full. They were almost like how any adult character on another show would have been treated. They just happened to be 15 and 16 and, 10 and 24. But in season 3, we told this story about Bailey's alcoholism. And the way they told that story, it happened over the course of the entire season. There was another show on at the time where one of the characters was dealing with alcoholism. And they told that story over 3 episodes. He drank too much. Everyone said, we're worried, you gotta stop drinking. He stopped drinking. It worked for the show that they were doing. We were doing something else. And so deeply that when Bailey was drinking for the first time, it wasn't even the story yet. And I'd never forget that Chris and Amy, who created the show, they had writer friends of theirs coming up to them and saying like, hey, I saw the show and please tell me that this like Bailey drinking thing is like going somewhere. Like that's not just like happening. And the genius of that is like, that's how a drinking problem happens. That's how it looks. Everyone's like, hang on a minute, And then episodes later, it became, wait, he's still drinking and he's acting different? Well, we told a story that wound up being really, really important to a lot of people. And I was really proud of being part of it. And what Amy said in this article was very much about that. It was about, we're going to take on a lot of complicated things, even though these are young characters. But we're going to deal with them honestly and authentically. And hopefully it becomes a bit of a companion for people who are dealing with these things in the world. And it did become that. The fact that that's the teen show I wound up on is the gift of a lifetime, and very much was in line with, stories that I wanted to be part of telling. And so, yeah, I think a lot of things followed in its footsteps. There were other shows, My So-Called Life, started at the same time. And so there was this awakening of, hang on a minute, why, we shouldn't just be grown-ups writing teen speak and just having them be, peripheral stories. Like, why not really explore this world? And in this case, a world where their parents weren't accessible to them and they had to, in many ways, be parents for themselves and each other. So yeah, an extraordinary experience, an amazing show to be a part of. And thankfully, we became one of the best shows people were watching.